Hello Wargamers. Tonight I want to talk about Genestealer Cults. Now this is an army that a lot of people have been looking forward to, myself included, ever since the 90s when I started playing Warhammer and 40k. They've stood out as one of these really cool pieces of the 40k universe, and even if it wasn't for the really cool rules that are leaking about them, and if it wasn't for the cool models, you still would want to play this army on the rule of cool alone. The concept of this kind of sinister Genestealer occult presence within the Imperium is just too much to pass up. So, you know, even if everything was terrible about the army, that would still be something that would draw me to it. But thankfully, long story short, the models are really nice and the rules look pretty good too. So, this is really a nice release so far from Games Workshop. So if you walk away from this video with nothing else, know that Genestealer Cults look like they're going to be pretty fun to play and collect. So yeah, basically I just want to talk about what we're going to be getting in terms of models and rules, and then go over some of the leaks that we've gotten so far. And there's some really good coverage by Bella Lost Souls, and I'll put a link in the description below. They have some exclusive coverage on it, and then Spiky Bits did a nice summary as well. So most of the stuff I'm going to be getting from them. Most of the time I would normally get stuff from Fate 212, but these guys I think have done a little bit more coherent coverage this time around, so we'll stick with them. Basically, the new codex has 19 unit listings, and so far we've gotten three new kits, including the Alkalite hybrids, the Alkalite, the hybrid metamorphs, and then the Neophyte hybrids. So the Neophyte hybrids, the Alkalite hybrids, and the hybrid metamorphs are three different stages of transformation from guardsmen into Genestealers, or three different levels of mutation, and so they have really cool rules and fluff that goes behind them. And yeah, so I'm not going to go into depths about what those rules are at the unit per unit basis, just because I don't have the codex in front of me, and it's kind of hard to figure out just based on the figures for me. But that said, these three units have great models. The other things that we're looking at getting are going to be things like the Alkalite Icona Ward, which is basically a standard bearer for the Alkalites, a Magus, which is a kit that's returning from the old vintage version of Genestealer Cults. There was a Magus back then, and we get one this time as well, which is really nice. And then a lot of the other unit entries that are in the new codex are things that are either borrowed from Tyranids or borrowed from Imperial Guard. So there are Genestealers, of course, in the Genestealer Cult book. Those come from the Tyranid line. Then there's things like Armored Sentinels and Chimeras and Leman Russes, and those all come from Imperial Guard. So stuff like that will be returning in the Genestealer Cult book, as well as the addition of a new vehicle for Genestealers called the Goliath, and that comes with two different variants. There's either like an armored transport part variant, or a mining version that has like drill bits on the front. So those are cool too. Really nice looking vehicles, and probably the biggest thing about those are that they have wheels, not treads. They have wheels, guys. Tires in the 41st millennium on a four-wheeled vehicle, not a motorcycle, just a four-wheeled vehicle with wheels. So that's pretty amazing yeah, on its own. But yeah, so that's what we're looking forward to as far as the release here is some really nice models. But aside from that, I want to talk a little bit about the Army General rules. So the first thing that they have as far as special rules goes is this rule called Cult Ambush. And that basically allows units to go into reserve or ongoing reserve. Or excuse me, I'll just read it for you so that we don't get confused here. It says units with this special rule that infiltrate or that arrive from reserve or ongoing reserve can choose to roll on the Cult Ambush table, which is opposite to this text in the book, instead of deploying or arriving from reserves normally, unless otherwise specified. Ambushing units move onto the table as described for other reserves and cannot move any further during the movement phase of the turn they deploy or arrive on the battlefield. Units cannot use the Cult Ambush special rule whilst they are embarked inside a vehicle. Right? And so there's a few different, so basically you roll a d6 and then you get these special rules that basically allow you to come onto the table with different levels of precision. If you roll a 1, you basically just come in from reserves as normal. 2 is basically outflanking. 3 is kind of like infiltrating. And then 4, 5, and 6 are moving onto the table at progressively closer margins to enemy units, with 6 allowing you to actually charge the turn that you come in. So that's huge right off the bat. That's huge that you can have units come in from reserve and charge that same turn. That's one of the biggest weaknesses for Genestealers, is the difficulty that they have getting into close combat. So this rule alone makes Genestealers a much more imposing presence on the tabletop. Added to that, that Genestealers have, I think, stealth natively, and also a 5-up invul save naturally as well in this codex. So Genestealers are much more durable and much more viable because they can ambush using these rules in this new codex. So if you're a fan of Genestealers, this should have you sold right off the bat. The second major rule is basically a counterpart to the first special rule, and that is Return to the Shadows. Instead of moving in your movement phase, any unit with this special rule that is not within 6 inches of any enemy models can be removed from the battlefield and placed into ongoing reserves. A unit cannot return to the shadows in the same turn it arrives from reserves or ongoing reserves, and cannot do so whilst embarked in a vehicle. So basically, your Genestealers can come out reserve, kill the thing that they're looking to kill, hop back in reserve. Do that again. The maximum number of times you're going to be able to actually do that in a game is probably 2, but nonetheless, that's still pretty important. That's pretty darn good, I think. That's one great way to save your units from getting shot up, right? All right, a model. Okay, the next special rule is Unquestioning Loyalty, and that is a model with this special rule automatically passes lookout sir attempts and can even make lookout sir attempts when fighting in a challenge. Cool, that's a nice fluff piece, but not necessarily the greatest asset. Certainly nice to have, though, as an option. Warlord traits, they have their own warlord traits, which we can go over here in a second. And then allies, they're come the apocalypse with pretty much every faction except for Imperial Guard and Tyranids, which they are allies of convenience. So Tyranids, congratulations, you get some form of allies, and that's awesome too. I mean, and I think that makes sense, right? That level of alliance between Tyranids and Astra Militarum and Genestealer Cults, I think, makes sense, and that's nice. Yeah. So let's see, warlord traits. So the first one grants stealth. The second is a friendly unit of Genestealer Cults have counterattack within 12 inches of units of the warlord. Third is move through cover. Warlord as you never suffer penalty initiative for charging through difficult terrain. 4 is will not die. 5 is all models in your warlord's detachment can use his leadership for morale tests. And 6 is when using the cult ambush with any unit, the Warlord joined, you do not need to roll on the ambush table, you just choose the result. So really that special rule is awesome. So the 6 Warlord trait is really a nice piece to go with your army. If you have a Genestealer Patriarch and a unit of Genestealers, that unit's gonna be able to do some harm, which is really nice. Let's see. Is there anything else I really want to talk about? Oh yeah, we can talk about psychic powers real quick. Overall, they're nice. They're not amazing. There is a mind control spell, which basically allows you to choose a single non-vehicle model and use it for shooting as if it was your own. That could be really helpful, especially against you know, monstrous creatures, Death Star units, anything that's not a vehicle. That could be really helpful. And then telepathic summons basically allows you to create more units, which is awesome as well. And those units can have any of the upgrades. So free units that can be completely decked out is always a nice thing. So yeah, really I see these being pretty strong against Tau, actually, with the idea of using mind control and also being able to avoid a lot of the shooting that Tau can dish out via their cult ambush special rule. I think that's pretty darn good. Genestealers are really weak trying to get into combat, but once they're there, they're going to tear through a Tau army, and that new invul save is going to help a lot. So I think they're actually pretty scary. So that's it. If you want to check out more, check out the links that are in the description. Of course, thanks for watching, and of course, happy wargaming.